And I feel when we're in those audiences now, in the dark, watching cinema experiences, there's a sort of a hand-holding that just sort of goes, look, we have come through. We're on the other, at least, Jesus Christ, I hope we have.
Well, going out is not Saturday night anymore. It's a death-defying experience.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. I wanted to start off with a really easy question, which is, how would you explain the job of a director to a 5-year-old? Kenneth, how would you?
Christ.
Yep.
Maybe start just literally pointing, moving, you know, indicating. So I always think my experience is of feeling that you know that's you don't have to do everybody else's job. I'm not interested in trying to do anybody else's job because I can't. But the goal is to, you know, point in a direction that a brilliant costume designer might move or whatever. So I suppose it's like a kind of creative traffic cop.
I'd say that it depends on what the 5-year-old is like, but I would say is creating curiosity about everything when you have the answer to all of it. Mm-hmm. Meaning the camera is looking for a question that the camera knows the answer of. And that's about it. Just say, that's it. I direct the questions of the audience towards the answer that I hope they have.
Was being a director a job that you understood to be open to you when you were a child? Jane, did you have a sense that that's a job, that's something I could do?
Yeah, absolutely not. But what I did do and what I did love doing was putting on plays with my friends at school and at home, and they were like almost series that ran on forever. We dressed up for and played, and in that way, you know, like making film is like going back to that time, and one of the very first and important things we always thought about was costume. Like, what costumes have we got, because that's going to depend the story, right? So, yeah, it was just like play, and I mean, I do still feel like when I get onto the set and I, you know, got over my nerves and anxieties, which are like enormous and endless, that's what feels exciting. You suddenly feel that play energy come up through you, and I feel liberated.
The costumes on your film are amazing, and they're perfect storytelling. Because when you go to the close of Benedict and you see the fraying on his collar, or when you see the Kristen Dunst's character advance, and all of a sudden she's in a silk robe with patterns, and it's so beautiful the way you do it.
I went to the Academy Museum yesterday, and next to a costume from Dracula, Coppola's Dracula, was his remark about that film: the costumes are the set.
They are, yes, which is true.
My story is a funny story. First time I went to cinema for watching a film, I was a kid, and I went there to other city by bus. Was very far from my city, my small city, with one of my friends, and it was a very old theater there. And we arrived very late, and mid of the screening, we entered, and we watched the film. It was foreign film, action films, and it was first time. I was looking to screen and to back the light, and smoking. People were smoking, and I didn't watch the first part of the film. And we came out, and we should go to home very fast because our parents, they didn't know we are very far. So, and then whole way I was thinking about first part of the film, and I said, well, what was the first part? And I had imagination in my mind. And so later I found maybe cinema started for me from that time. So I started with thinking and writing, you know, and I was very kid. And when we are talking about cinema, always I see myself as a writer, you know, as a director. You know, the most important part for me is writing.
Ray, what about you? Did you see yourself as a director when you were a kid? Did you understand what the job was?
Not at all. I was a baseball player. Like that was my life. My dad, like my first outfit was like a New York Mets onesie, and that he just thought he was raising a professional athlete. And so I played on every team you can possibly imagine, and I played college baseball, had a couple of major league tryouts, but once that failed, then I had to get a job like everybody else. And I've had 2 careers. Even before filmmaking, I was a kindergarten teacher, and then I left that to go to Wall Street. And I have a brother that's a filmmaker, Rashad Ernesto Green, and he was the one that was doing, drama and art. And I was like, what's my brother doing? And then when he became a filmmaker and went behind the camera, he started telling our family stories. And I was like, oh, I know that story because I lived that. And it was him going out there and sharing our family stories that I was like, oh, wait, that's a pretty cool concept if I can figure out how to do it. I didn't know how to make movies. So I thought my brother and I could make movies together. And so I applied to film school at 27 or 28 years old and got in and left my day job to pursue filmmaking.
But are there parallels between being a kindergarten teacher and running a set?
Oh, 100%. I won't name names, but it's look at the end of the day, everybody learns differently, and you can't speak to anybody the same. Everybody deserves that individual. When you're teaching, you can't teach broadly to the students. You have to give them individual attention, and I was able to learn that, and it gives me so much joy on a set to talk to all the cast and be able to to really try to make it an individual experience for everybody, from the PAs to everybody on set, and hopefully that's the kind of environment that we set forth.
You can tell me off the record later who is most like a kindergarten teacher about that.
Is there a nappy
Not for this roundtable.
Pedro, what about you? When you were a kid, did you envision yourself as a director? Did you understand the job?
Oh, yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I started watching movies very early, like 8, 9 years old, and I was fascinated by that. I'm talking about the 50s in Spain, that it was a very good period for cinema, but very bad period for Spain. We were in a post-war horrible, one of the darkest moments of our history. So, the cinema for me, it was the parallel world that I would like to live. And of course, I wanted to be inside. I wanted to belong to that universe. And till I was like 16 or 17 when I went to Madrid. And then, because at the beginning when I was a kid, I thought that they were the actors, because I only saw just the cromos. I don't know how to say that, Guillermo.
Collectible cards.
Yes, of actors, and I thought that they made the movies. So then I thought, oh, I want to become one of them. I want to become an actor. But at 16, then I discovered that they were someone behind the camera, and also someone that write the story. And that in that moment I decided that I wanted to be in that place. And it was very clear to me because I went to Madrid when I was 18 years old. I tried to go to the school of cinema, but Franco closed it 1 year after. And then just with the first money that I get, I buy a Super 8mm movie, and my only school was just to shoot many Super 8mm movies, but always, I was very serious, always writing the script with dialogues. Even the sound, it was almost impossible because it was 1 millimeter. And I edited myself. And that was my only school, and that was very funny to do all that Super 8mm movies.
That's amazing. Let's talk about writing a little bit. Do you think of a particular audience when you're writing your movie? Do you think of who will be watching it? Guillermo?
Not really. I really write for myself, and if I'm writing with somebody else, for us. But even my system is I rewrite what they write. So even when I'm writing, I don't think of the other person, as they can tell you. And what I think is fascinating for me was to learn the rhythm of English, because it is my second language, and and when I want to get into the rhythm, which is very, very percussive, I read Hemingway, because it's pa, 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 and Spanish is very lyrical, it's melodic. And it took me a long time to figure out these rhythms. But for me, writing a line of dialogue is fascinating. It has the construction of a small story. I hate and love writing. It's the most solitary, horrible process. I love editing because then the typewriter is the abbot. And all the verbs and all the consonants and all the vowels are shot. But when you're alone with that thing and it's going, come on, make me do it. And you go, I don't know, you win today. I'm going to watch YouTube.
Asghar, you were nodding when he was talking. What do you think about an audience when you're writing?
Yeah, as Guillermo said, same for me. When I'm writing, there is only one audience, is myself. When I think for everybody it's like this, you know, when you write something, you ask yourself, does it work? Does it have enough emotion and everything? So I cannot understand when writers, they imagine a special group of audience. For example, they say, so this is the film for universal film. How we can say this? Because we don't know a lot of audience with different mind. And so for me, there is only one audience. If you be honest, when you are writing, there is one audience in front of you, and always he's fighting with you. And this is good fight, because you write something and suddenly he says or she says, it doesn't work. And you repeat it. And I love this period because I am alone, but I'm not alone at the same time. You know, there's a lot of light with yourself. You know, now in this age, I know what's in my mind, which kind of questions I have in my life, you know. And I have this gift by writing, you know. I have a lot of questions. I think all of us, we have a lot of questions. When indirectly we are sharing our questions, it means, for me, it's like we don't have answers. Some people, some audience, they think we have answers, certain answers, and we are sharing our answers to people. But it's not like this. We have a lot of questions. Kurosawa, Japanese director, was in a interview, and people ask him, why you did this in your film? Why? And sometimes he said, I don't know. And people laugh. But I understand when we say I don't know, it means this is my question, and I share my question to you. You know, for this I love writing, and I hate the rest of the process.
So Asghar loves writing. Guillermo hates it. Does anyone else have a strong? I mean, you love it
when it goes well.
Yeah. Anybody else have a strong opinion about that stage of filmmaking?
I really love it. I've really loved collaborating with Jared Lee on the TV series and various other projects. It's just so fun. And I think I lose a lot of angst about it, because quite quickly they tell you, that's shit, this is good, whatever, you know, and somehow I just don't argue with it. Like, if I was doing it by myself, I would go on and wonder, and, you know, is this any good, is not, I don't know. But very quickly, we just kind of lose our egos about it, and it's, so I've really loved that. But there's some projects that I work on, like this adaptation for Power of the Dog, that, you know, I want to do alone, because I just want that particular energy to go through it. And I guess I found that with writing this particular adaptation, it was kind of easy because of the work that I'd already done with, you know, writing 12 hours of television. And then also, yeah, I had a great pal in Tanya Sagachian, who sort of read everything, and I could check with her, you know, like, just didn't waste too much time going down a blind alley, because that can be really hard work.
This was your producer on the film?
I mean, I love to check, you know. Like, I think this is going well, I'm feeling the energy, but can you check, you know? Do you get it? I think
what I found
helpful.
with like, amongst all of those sort of experiences, that my goal with this one was to, the basic goal was to try and get my mind out of the way. It was just a sort of, so I was very sort of precise about when I started every morning and when I finished, and not give myself too much time to think. my absolute instinct was do not overthink this. I feel as though some of the beauties of directing is you get in a lot of collaborations, and they're wonderful, but I felt as though somehow the pandemics led to this idea of kind of taking advantage of the silence somehow and confining. I'd make sure that I started 9 o'clock every morning, get there. I needed to be doing it by 9 o'clock. It was like a sort of, it was a race against the clock, and had to have something that was going to come out, and then leave it as soon as I possibly could. And the moment I started to go back too much and think about it, there was internal, moving around as one went along, but my whole goal, because I find it so painful, and I'd like you also, the first phrase that I learnt directing films that I felt was the most useful phrase for me was yours. I don't know. When I was brave enough to say I don't know, that's when all of this amazing advice and collaboration came. But in this instance, I wanted to get in, get out, and somehow trap my instinct before I decided to sort of make it better. And I wanted to buy any imperfections. I wanted to leave the blood on the page, as it were.
So you would start at 9, and how long would you go?
Till 1. I'd work till 1. That would be a lot of wandering about, but then I'd get out. I'd get out before I started to, and not do anything else, not think about it for the rest of the day, or not consciously anyway, and then go back. Sometimes it was like a bit of a fight.
And who did you share it with in the end?
I didn't really share it with anybody. My wife didn't even know what I was writing. Just she knew I went to the shed every day, and it's just it's partly
like Ed Gein.
Yeah, it's partly that I don't know. I'd been involved with a couple of big films where I just felt, Jesus Christ, if I have another meeting with another massive number of very talented people, but that just I needed to do something that was only out of there. Yeah. That's, or at least with this one, that's what I felt. If I could, of course, it doesn't quite work like that, but that was my gut, and that's what I try to follow.
Is that why you made this movie right now? Why was Belfast at this moment in your career?
One of those ones where, 50 years of looking at the same thing, a particular moment in my life where everything changed. There was about 20 seconds in my life when I heard a noise that I thought was bees. I thought it was bumblebees, because we live next to a park. And then everything slowed down, and then I turned around and I looked and I thought, well, maybe I'm seeing the swarm of bees at the bottom of the street. But it's not. It's people. Oh Christ, they're coming towards us. And it turned into a riot where they smashed windows and pulled things, pulled the drains up out of the street and smashed them and used these bits of wrought iron, things I'd never understood before about how that worked. Then they took up all the paving stones, so that literally the ground that we walked on was gone, and now we were only walking on sand. So as I thought about this years later, I thought, Christ, there's a metaphor right there, a living metaphor for now my life is completely shifting. And it never settled. So it just, those 20 seconds, I realized I was never the same again with my family. I never lived in the same place. I didn't sound the same. I didn't do, what I thought I might be doing. I didn't relate to my family in the same way. There was sort of 20 seconds that just where the world turned upside down, and I've spent about 50 years slowly coming to the realization that was the most important defining event in my own little personal life, and that I needed to go back and try and understand. I think I've been sort of haunted, and I would say probably guilt-ridden as well about it for about half a century. So I just had to do it.
Pedro, you also are looking at a moment in history in your movie. Why did you make that movie now?
Well, I try to include, this, what you're talking about, the mass graves in Spain. I tried to do it before, but I didn't find the right script. By the way, hearing all of them, I write alone, completely alone, and I would like to collaborate with someone, but it's like to find a husband or a wife. Mm-hmm. I think it's very difficult for me, and I feel sometimes I feel bad of writing alone. And this political thing that appears here, I try to write for the first time like 12 years ago, because this is also something that happens to me, that I don't write I mean, with 3 or 4 exceptions, I don't write one script and it's just in 4 or 5 months. I mean, it took me years. I mean, depending on the structure of the script. For example, Bad Education, it was, I have it like 16 years. Or Talk to Her, it was more or less like that. Women on the Verge of a River Breakdown is just released in 3 months. And also, for example, Pain and Glory also was very, very fast. But in this case, for example, with Parallel Mothers, I start since the beginning, including the mass graves and also the couple of mothers. I felt when I finished, and I finished, as I tell you, 12 years ago, and I didn't feel happy with that. So I leave it in my desk. And what I know, and this is something that I used to do, is that when I finish, I have many stories at the same time. So when I finish the one that I'm shooting, then I go back to one of them that is more appealing, and then, well, let's try to see. I mean, with time, I mean that you have a distance with the story, and then for me, the more important thing is just rewrite. I mean, for me, write is more rewrite one day. And I'm very happy when I'm rewriting because I know the story, I know the characters, and I feel more secure. So it's a bit adventure that you don't know when it's going to finish because that is unpredictable for me too.
I remember when we were Pedro produced Devil's Backbone with me, and he saved my life. And the editing, he would come to the editing room for many days, and he would bring his little lunch. And he always would say, "You want to try it?" Because we were always on a diet.
Always
on a diet. And he would say, "What are you having today?" "I'm having egg with truffle sauce." I go, "Can I?" But every day he would tell us a different screenplay he was working on.
Oh, wow.
He would say, "I'm working."
Oh, yes?
Yes.
I remember that.
I think I know 10 years in his filmography to come. and it was incredible to see him. And every time he would say, "But I haven't finished that one because I haven't found this or that," and he would keep them.
No, you have to be very, very, ¿cómo se dice? Autocrítica, self-critic. And I am very rough with myself. So I mean, I write almost every day, not at 9.
What time do you start?
Much later.
9 is noon.
Ray, did you make a pitch for yourself to direct King Richard, and what did that look like?
Yes. First I spoke, I think it was one of those typical Hollywood moments where I was like slipped the script by 4 different people, and you're not first up to direct it, but you should check this one out. And so when I read the script, I really responded to the story, you know, of the Williams sisters and their journey. And of course we know who they are, but this particular, you know, the script really was a different window into their lives. And I thought it was an interesting take, you know, through the father's perspective, and having grown up with a father in a single parent household and had a very similar relationship to the one that was in the script. I just, you know, said, how do I get this one? So I called my agent, and at the time, they didn't have the rights to the family. And so fast forward, I just said, well, keep me posted, let me know. I wouldn't do a family project without the support of the family. And, you know, for sure, you know, you can't tell their story without them. And sure enough, they got the rights, and I guess Warner Brothers secured the rights of the film, and Will Smith became attached to the film. And at that point, then they started the director search, and I was able to land an interview with Warner Brothers. And I had never done, you know, studio film before, so it was my first time as, you know, independent. You know, I made Monsters and Men, a really small movie, and here I am having my first studio. I mean, I didn't really even know how to be. I was like, should I have a pitch presentation? Like, what do I do? You know, just be yourself. Be yourself. No, is myself good enough? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So you know, sure enough, I was. I just went on that meeting. Didn't have any presentation, and just connected with the story as the script. And that's how I come into most of my projects, was with the, you know, okay, this is what we have, and this is how I think I can, you know, hopefully make it better, or I have a perspective on this particular thing. And I think that was it, right? Growing up an athlete, growing up someone that had experienced that,
Yeah, I mean, you've got everything there. I would give you the job, like the kindergarten teaching, perfect.
So I guess
right? Yeah.
The studio felt so. The studio felt so, and then I guess Will was the final step in that. I didn't realize that at the time, that Will was who I had to meet next. And similar, I said, okay, I'm going into meeting with Will Smith. I'm not going to go in with a pitch presentation or any of that stuff. I'm just going to be me and have a conversation about what it's like being a father myself, what it's like, for him, and what are we going to connect on. This is somebody that we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and go in the trenches. And when you walk into the room with like LeBron James, you're like, okay, he's the star player, but what is he looking for in a young director? What is it about me? Why am I in this room? And so I certainly wanted to say, look, well, this is what I think I can bring to this, my perspective. And we just hit it off as two guys, and it was just, that was it. And look, it was all poker face by the end of the meeting, and Will was like, cool, and then like the next 3 directors were probably lined up. Next, and I was like, all right, well, I guess that didn't go so well. You don't know until you leave. And of course, like a week and a half later, I got that call, and it was amazing. And look, that's what you go to film school. That's all those things, right? It was like everything, it was collective. It felt like I wasn't going to sell myself short. I felt like I belonged there. I felt closer to this particular film than I did the one that I wrote. And that was hard to do. And maybe it was the father relationship in the story, that experience growing up an athlete, like that was closer than the film that I had actually written myself. And then of course the community, like I grew up in a similar area to Compton, on the East Coast, and what that's like, and trying to add that level of authenticity to growing up in those spaces and our voice, and so that was it. That was sort of the pitch to get the job. And then it was, of course, working with Will, you get a certain level of prep that I was not accustomed to on my first movie. I think I I edited my first movie in 6 weeks or something crazy. And here I am with, 8 to 12 weeks of prep. And I was like, this is amazing, this is incredible. And so the process began in terms of, working with Will and then casting the rest of the film.
And how was it like working with a studio film after working more independently? Did you manage to sort of create it in a way that you felt like free or comfortable?
I did, and maybe it's because I had the relationship with Will, and I think that was the biggest, like he was my biggest ally, and so long as that relationship was tight, I didn't feel like I was really answering to anybody else. It was
like tennis?
He didn't play tennis, I don't play tennis, which was, I think, liberating in a lot of ways, because I needed it to make sense to me, as a non-tennis player or somebody. And I said, okay, well, this is boring. And look, I like the game now, and it's great to watch. But
I've been getting tennis coaching actually during the pandemic.
Yeah,
it's like the only thing you could do, and I just love it. I've learned to hit the ball.
Exactly. I know, like as a baseball player, I know how boring that is for somebody that doesn't play. And so, if I was going to make like, how can I make this exciting? For somebody like my mother who's just never seen a match. How can she understand the tennis in the movie? And so I tried to work a lot on the storytelling of the tennis in the film so that it would be, digestible for somebody that doesn't understand it.
Let's talk about actors a bit. I'm curious, Asghar, how you cast your leading man. He was a new face for me.
So handsome.
Yeah, as we had a conversation with Guillermo this morning, and he started talking about this actor, young actor.
The face.
Yeah,
but incredibly compelling.
Yeah, and you made my day by that conversation. Thank you. In the beginning with this film, my plan was casting non-professional actors, and I said I'm trying to make a film like a documentary in directing, in writing, everything. And I said, so I will select a non-professional actor who work in theater, but nobody knows their face and should be very fresh and new. And 90% of actors in this film, it's first time they come in front of the camera. Like the girlfriend, she's first time comes in front of camera. But for this special role, special part. You know, I met some people, but I thought this is a very simple character in a very hard and tough situation. And then I understood it's more difficult acting a simple person than difficult person. Than, you know, maybe if you bring a without any experience actor who doesn't have any experience, maybe this character goes to kind of bullshit person. And so I said, so I need a professional actor. And this guy, who is tennis player and very famous in my country, and he has a very strong body. And first time I met him, and I said, no, he is very strong. And I started talking with him, and we started working on his body. And I remember first day, I said to him, you know, you have a problem in your ear, and you can listen by this ear. When someone is talking to you, be like this. And always in this film is like this. And then we work on his finger. Always in this film, his finger is broken, kind of broken. Yeah. And his shoulder and everything. And it took maybe 2-3 weeks. But after 1 month, I thought we need something more in his face. My experience in a separation, last scene of a separation with my daughter, who is in court in front of judge, and he asks her, what's your decision, going to with your father or your mother? And that time she did something by herself. I didn't say any advice to her. She's crying, and at the same time she has a smile. And I was behind the camera, and I started crying, and she was my daughter, but you know, I forget everything. And I said, why? I wrote this. And I understood this is because contrast of smile and crying same time. So I took out this smile, and I said to this man, Amir, all the time you go behind a smile. When you have more problem, do more smile. And this is, he said, oh, it's very risky. People, they will laugh. And I said, no, people understand. You want make a nice face for other people. You need their kindness, and you do something for this. And we did this, and these small things change everything and change the character. And when you always he has in the film, in the story, he has small lies, small wrong things. But as Guillermo said this morning to me, we understand, we have empathy with him. We understand his situation, and we hope he will win. You know, yeah. Yeah, he did a very good job. And during pandemic, during shooting, every day he was working on this role. He has a lot of questions every day. I'm very happy working with him. He has very good future, I think. I hope.
Ken, how do you go about casting people who are your family members?
What I guess I wanted, particularly from the 9-year-old boy who was going to be at the center of it, was the kind of thing actually I've seen in all of these films, amazing examples in all of these films of, seems so simple to say, but the ability to listen. The boy in the center of this film was going to, half of his performance was going to be reacting. Half of his performance was going to be us seeing how the situation was writ on his face. So casting him was critical, actually. I realized that if we didn't cast him well, we couldn't make the film, you know. I'd written a scene that came in, I'd written it sort of editorially in mind, where I was going to come in with him going, I don't want to leave Belfast. And I realized this was a big ask for the 9-year-old to start like that. So he became quite intrigued, however, when we said, well, look, so we're going to, Jamie Dornan and Katrina Balfe as your parents, they're going to improvise, and it might, I don't know how long it's going to take, but simply they're going to sit down with you and they're going to try and explain what this decision is. And you could see already, like the little glee in his eye, because he didn't know what was coming. And by contrast, Jamie and Katrina were going, no, we've got to improvise this big scene. But that seemed to capture something in him. So I would say, like in that scene, because he knew something weird's going to happen, he was listening like that. I mean, he was so present. And it seemed to me that the key for us was just finding in the kid that ability, which he had, to just be completely and utterly filled up with being in that moment and listening like his life depended on it. Everything was about that. There was no extra bit of, I'm listening, but I'm thinking about something else, or I'm worrying or whatever. You totally and utterly, 100%, what is it you're going to tell me? And so we just tried to make as much of the film have that. So I rarely did second and third takes with the boy.
Wow.
You know, it was, you know, you were rolling the dice on just you know, capturing life as it happened and throwing him compassionate curveballs. I didn't want to manipulate them particularly, but just, and every time they did that, they made it their own anyway. So it got further away from what might have been my story. I didn't mind that. I wanted that. If it was ever going to go elsewhere, as it were, it needed to be something that wasn't quite, you know, if it was just for me, I could have written a notebook and, you know, kept it to myself. But the listening thing, which is so beautifully done in all of these films, I could quote, you know, shots in each of them where the pleasure, the utter pleasure, is watching apparently nothing, well, nothing being said, but some amazing, subtle, invisible sound treatment and this humanity happening in people's eyes. You know, the silences in these movies are just unbelievable to me.
When you talk about a safe set, there's a lot of conversation in Hollywood right now about safe sets because of the tragedy that happened on Rust, and people are discussing whether real guns should be on movie sets, or instead if there should be rubber guns and you put the effects in CGI. Does anyone have an opinion on what would be the best way forward on the issue of guns on sets?
I haven't shot a real gun in a movie set since 2007 or 8. You know, I don't think it's necessary anymore. I really don't.
I think that there is a big difference of culture between, I mean, the Spanish and the American. I mean, we don't see weapons in our lives, but it seems to me that here is a much more domestic thing. That, and I'm sure that there are also a domestic accident with weapon, because I mean, here there are a weapon culture that I think this is what is really dangerous. But of course, absolutely, I mean, in one movie, they are not necessary and they shouldn't be used, absolutely.
Audiences are slowly starting to return to movie theaters. What do you think that the changes that happened to the movie industry during the pandemic will be permanent in terms of the way people learn to watch things at home? And is there anything directors can do about that?
I think we have to make fabulous films that people are talking about and excited to see and they want to see in a big cinema. Is really, you know, that's the #1 thing. And, you know, that's what I think us as directors need to do.
I think it's true. I mean, I think you're right. It's quality. It's a sense of event, sense of something being different, the story and the way that story is told being, you know, distinctly more differently, let's say differently enjoyable in a movie theater. You know, just the size and the nature of the story, and also reminding people of just, I mean, I go to the movies all the time. I love going to pictures. I always have done. And I mean, my film explains where it started. But I do it. I'm an inveterate moviegoer to all kinds of movies, and I just love the entire experience from start to finish. And in fact, there are no bad movies for me, actually, because you know, on sometimes on television and certainly in the theater, you know, you can see certain experiences and you know you want to check out. But I find in the theater that communal experience, and particularly it's, I mean, these are obvious things to say, but it's the size of image, it's the completeness of the sound picture, it is the immersion, it's the you know, the suspension of disbelief, the dive into the story, the experiential thing in the communal setting is just so exciting.
Don't you also think it's that quality of memory that you actually remember the story better because you know where you were when you were watching it? Like, oh, I was in that cinema and I had the popcorn, or I had this and that.
Yeah.
That if you watch everything at home on your home screen, there's no difference.
And you've made that effort to go out.
You can't recall the circumstance around it that sort of holds memory.
That plus, like in your picture, there's just, in a cinema, there's just things you can't ever forget. It's just there, like the shot with those two out, and you travel around them as they're out on their drive and everything. It's just, these are jaw-dropping moments. All of these films have them.
The landscape in your movie, the wide shots of Belfast punctuating the narrative. But I think it's hard to calculate if this is transitional or if it's generational. Meaning, did it happen because of the pandemic, or did it just underline something that is generational?
Anyway, happening,
because I think if you talk to Mozart and said, look, somebody's going to listen to your quartet while they're jogging on a little iPod, or they're going to listen to your quartet while they're cooking, he would have said, absolutely not. But so we don't know. It's early to tell. It's early to tell.
I think it happened anyway before the pandemic. At least in Spain, they were closing hundreds of theaters, but before the pandemic, because the people just start not going to the theaters. And of course, the pandemic made this process like 5 years more. And in Spain is a very sad reality, because the box office rank like the 50%, but for the whole movies, not only, including Venom, the James Bond movie, all the big blockbusters, they are doing like, the half of they should do. But the reality is that the box office is very bad in Spain. And I don't know if that is reversible situation. I don't know if the directors can do something to solve this situation. But for me, it's so clear that the experience of being in a big theater, that make me feel some hope. Because even, just talking about Dune, for example, the young people, if they see the movie in a big screen, of course, there is the only way to be hooked by the story. The screen should be bigger than your dining room. Yes. And I hope that the younger generation will discover one day and then will start going again. But reality for the moment in Spain is very sad.
And it's a sort of submission, isn't it?
Yes.
To something bigger than yourself, and to let it really
that is the difference.
Yes.
Because I think the TV obeys you, and you obey the cinema.
Yeah. So you've got to get into a bit of submission.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you get, and just the other thing that I think, and these films all do it, is you get the epic nature of the human face. Just seeing in close-ups of people, massive close-ups of faces in the cinema. That makes me feel different about the human condition.
Absolutely.
Than seeing it at the same size as me across the, when I can put the kettle on, or I can go and, stop or say, oh, no, don't stop it. I'll just go and get the thing, and I will be back in 2 minutes. Where any directors then they go, but that's the bit. You can't go away when she's about to do this or do that.
It is true.
Yeah, Susan Sontag said, like 20 years ago, when they appeared the domestic screens, that just to be hooked by a movie, you need to go to a theater, to be in the darkness, surrounded by unknown people. And I think I got the same feeling, just to be in the darkness, with a big screen and surrounded by people that you don't know.
Yes, that Stranger Thing is really
it's
powerful.
strange, yes.
It's sort of beautiful, isn't
I like unknown people more.
Like, this is humanity. I don't know who it is, but
I'm finding a kind of electric emotion in those audiences that isn't just to do with the specific film. It's to do with the communal experience. It's to do with getting something from those stories, but it's getting something together. And I know it sounds a bit sort of hokey and kind of sappy, but you can feel it. It's very moving. It's just very moving that we were all there together. Somehow there's a D.H. Lawrence wrote a series of poems about a very difficult period in his life, and it was a very simple volume afterwards, and the title was "Look, We Have Come Through." And I feel when we're in those audiences now, in the dark, watching cinema experiences, there's a sort of a hand-holding that just sort of goes, look, we have come through. We're on the other, at least, Jesus Christ, I hope we have. Or we're heading, you know, towards a more, you know, full version.
Well, going out is not Saturday night anymore. It's a death-defying experience.
Just one last light question as we end. What do you wish you had known on your first film?
Okay, I'll go. I wish I'd known that you should ask other people about crew members, you know, like how they performed with other people, because I had the most difficult crew you could ever imagine, and it caused me so much stress that the skin actually literally peeled off my hands.
And yet the movie is fantastic.
Yeah, but you know, I note to self, like, yeah, whatever, I don't want to do that again.
I would say the power of saying no. You know, in my first film, I just wanted to make everybody happy and please everybody, and it's just impossible to do that. And I think I've learned to say no. You know, as I've gotten a little older, and there's power in being able to do that. Or saying, hey, you know, I can't do that right now, I'll come back. And I wish I would have done that more in the beginning of my career. And I try to encourage students to say no to things that they don't feel right. Trust your instincts. Those things are always, you know, going to serve you better than you know, some of the other things. And really being able to stick to your guns, because, you know, there's producers and all these other people that come in and have so many great, and they're great ideas. You can listen and you can take them in and you can still say no. So I wish I would have learned that a little earlier.
For me, the thing I remember from my first film, and this is like a dream, and I love it. It's, you know, by that film nobody knew me that time, and I was a young filmmaker, and people, audience, and critics, when they watched my film, they didn't have any preconcept, and I love it. And this day, I think maybe it's our experience together. People who go to watch our films, they read a lot of things about our film. They knew everything. For example, you tried a lot for making a twist, and then they knew everything. They knew your style, and always they having their mind. So he will do something now at after 10 minutes. So they don't watch your film. Always they are watching the structure. You know, they don't go inside of it. Not all audience. I mean, people who are cinema lover. And this is, for me, always I wish, my first film was very good, because people, they didn't look to my name, and they went to cinema and watched the story, and they accept the story. So my wish is, it's a dream. People who watch my film, they don't know this is my film, and then the feedback is very good feedback and useful.
The freedom of the beginner.
I think I could tell it's your film, even if you were not deciding, by the way. But that's one of the things I loved about Belfast. It was the sum of everything you have learned. And like, there were things that were just completely from the gut. There were things that were precise. There were things that were executed with enormous skill and care. It was the confluence of everything. It felt like joining everything you learned on rhythm, on storytelling. It was just, it needed all that to confluence, and it still felt like a movie of yours. It was just, it was pretty beautiful to look at.
Thank you very much. One of the things that I tried to go to movies not knowing anything. I like to not know anything. I don't want to read any. I don't want to know what the plot is. I don't want to know anything about it. But the thing that I wish I had known in my first film, frankly, I'm still trying to learn it. I'd like to know how to sleep more. I realized that just getting sleep was critical. At least to me, it was just because, you know, you're starting to work out, Christ, why was I so cranky? You know, why am I so emotional? You know, why am I getting so worked up? Why am I coming home after that scene and I'm bursting into tears and I don't know why? And it was more sleep. More sleep, more laughter. My first film, I was so serious that Jesus Christ, I couldn't have been more serious, you know. I mean, you know, and trying to please everybody as well. So I wish I'd slept more, laughed more, and breathed more, because I was just so sort of, you know.
But it's absolutely true. I remember Jim Cameron says 8 hours of sleep is the first duty of a director.
Oh man!
But
Wouldn't that be beautiful? 8 hours.
8 hours, but I don't practice it in my life. But I would say the only thing I would say to myself is, as you grow older, you learn to listen more than you listen when you're young. You know, you want to talk and say, and this is gonna, and when you're older, you learn to listen, and that's it.
When then the first thing that I think you have to learn is just to answer every kind of question. For the first time, everybody were asking me questions. Some of them I knew, and some of them I don't knew. I mean, I didn't know at all. But I think a director has to answer, because if not, there is a chaos. So even if you don't know the answer, you say something, and then the machine works. Because I mean, that was the first time that I have, and also I think this is something that that defines a director, is someone that everybody is asking him a lot of questions, more than hundreds by day, and you have to give an answer. It doesn't matter what.
And that's why you need 8 hours of sleep.
Yes.
For sure. Well, I thank you all so much for being here. It was lovely to have you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.